It's funny going back and watching older movies and think about the little eras and little phases that Hollywood tends to have. You have, of course, the Western craze. You have the run of slasher copycats after Halloween came out in the late 70s. You have, in the 2010s, everyone trying to form their own cinematic universe. And it's just funny going back and watching some of the trends where like one person did something really successful and everybody else decided to copy. And one era that I'm kind of glad that we're now fully past is the era of us giving a huge amount of credit to these actors doing these prestige movies where they play people who have some type of special needs. That's kind of the catch-all term for that. But there's somebody, they have those special needs, and we would give them so much credit. Like Hollywood would give them so much credit and like, oh, they're so brave doing these roles. And man, going back to watching them, they are cringy. They are really disrespectful, to be quite honest with you. And they're laughable to an extent because it's like, you're not doing anything special. Why are we impressed by this? You know, you had movies like The Other Sister with Juliette Lewis. You had Rain Man with Dustin Hoffman. And you had, to me, the two movies that are like the worst examples of this are I Am Sam starring Sean Penn and Cuba Gooding Jr. in Radio. Those were just, that crosses a line. And then sometimes people will watch these and they would like hold them dear and be like, you can't really like mock or make fun of them because it's like you're mocking people with, you know, special needs. And it's just like, no, we're not doing that. These actors, these directors, writers, they're doing it because they played the roles all the same. It was just like they were playing variants of the exact same person, and they would have, you know, janky haircut, you know, messed up. They would never give these folks dignity. And like in the case of Radio, that was a real person. And it's like, hey, Radio wasn't really like that. If you like look up the actual Radio, like he had some type of like autism or something like that, but he was able to function like a regular person. Like these movies so often make some of these people seem like they can't operate in regular society. And it's like, no, they just have, you know, they think a little different. They see the world in a little slightly different way, but they're just regular people. And it's like, y'all are robbing these folks of dignity. And I'm glad that this movie, Tropic Thunder, came out. One of my favorite movies of all time, because it mocks and it really shows how stupid a lot of those performances are, where you're not doing anything. You're just putting on some voice. You might have some teeth. You know, you speak in a real slow way. And again, very disrespectful. And it's just like, it allowed us to not only fully move past that era, but it allowed us to mock and laugh at some of those performances. Like you go back and you watch like Radio. It is jokes with how bad the performance is. And I shouldn't say bad. It's jokes with what they chose to do for that performance with Cuba Gooding Jr. I Am Sam's the same way. And so a lot of those movies, they haven't aged well in the way that they may have wanted to, but they are very funny because of how just samey some of those performances are. And again, Tropic Thunder kicked the door open. It kicked it in to let us really, yeah, we can kind of laugh. Like you're not doing anything extra or special. Y'all are doing the same thing. It's almost like it's the Mickey Rooney thing from Breakfast at Tiffany's, where you have this person who's clearly white doing a terrible Asian Chinese accent. So it's along the lines of that. But there's one that is kind of borderline, and it was one that was a rotation piece of my childhood for years, and it's Forrest Gump. You know, Forrest Gump, it is the one of those movies where it does have a little bit of that element. Forrest is in the movie. I think he's on the spectrum, but Forrest is able to navigate society pretty well. But the movie, I think it is still a little cringy, but it's less so than some of those other movies, because Forrest Gump comes off more as like a Paul Bunyan type story, where you just make up a bunch of things, where like a tall tale, where you make up some things where it's like Paul Bunyan and his ox Babe were walking across the country and they stepped this place and bam, that's how we got the Great Lakes. Stuff like that, where it is clearly not true. It's not harmless. There's like real things, but it's not anything that's gonna cause too much problems. Like Forrest Gump leans more into that as opposed to the other type of movies. Like Forrest Gump isn't I Am Sam. Tom Hanks stars as Forrest Gump, and I never noticed this when I was a kid, but I did not know that Forrest Gump was named after the founder of the Ku Klux Klan. Like, it's right there at the very beginning of the movie. It's just like maybe my brain just skipped past that part. Like, we don't need to remember that. But yeah, very, very prominent part of the movie. Like, Forrest is named after a Klansman, which is okay. Like, we in Alabama and we're at the Gump home. We see that, and I'm just thinking like, was this a plantation? Like, Forrest says like, hey, it's been in our family for all these years, and then, you know, Forrest is named after a relative who founded the KKK. It's like, oh, the Gump home was a plantation house. Like, not the best to think about, but it doesn't affect my enjoyment of the movie too much just thinking about that element. Because like I said, Forrest Gump plays more as a folk tale or like a tall tale as opposed to should be a hyper real movie. Like, there's still sad things that can happen in those stories, and there's still sad things that can happen in this, serious things happen in this, but for the most part it does have that element, and I think that takes the sting out a little bit from the portrayal that Tom Hanks is given of Forrest. Very good cast in this movie. Sally Field, she stars as Mama Gump. Really, really smart role. It is another example of people of the weird age difference. Like, they made Sally Field Tom Hanks's mom in this movie, and there's only like a 10-year age gap between the two. They had to really age her up when she was dying later in the movie. You have Michael T. Williams as Bubba, and gotta say, the bromance, the friendship of Bubba and Forrest, highlight of the movie. I really love that. Honestly, all the little characters that Forrest meets when he's in the army, Bubba and Lieutenant Dan, played by Gary Sinise, those are really good characters. Like, I think Gary Sinise might give, after Tom Hanks, gives the best performance in this movie as Lieutenant Dan, because there is some messed up stuff that happens to them. They were in Vietnam, but Lieutenant Dan is such a maniac, and the way that he's played, it adds a little bit of comedy to it, and so we can still have empathy for these serious situations, but there is that black comedy element where you can kind of chuckle and laugh at it a little bit, and I think that's what makes some of those elements work. The one character in this movie that I think is kind of tonally it crashes a little bit is Jenny, who the adult version is played by Robin Wright, and Jenny and Forrest are not a good couple in terms of chemistry. Like, they don't ever really feel like a couple in this movie, and also it's just, God, life just decided to destroy Jenny from jump. Like, Jenny, her stuff is too real and is too sad for this type of story. Like, it is, I think maybe that was the point where you have Forrest having all these little fantastical things happen. Like, Forrest becomes a star college football player at the University of Alabama under Bear Bryant. Roll Tide. You have Forrest go into the Army, and he's a war hero and gets the Congressional Medal of Honor. He becomes a multi-millionaire because he founded a shrimp boat company and was an investor in early investor in Apple. He has all these great things happen to him. Meanwhile, poor Jenny, life just destroys her. Like, Forrest, he's he had the messed up legs. And before I go a little bit more into Jenny, the scene in the hospital with Lieutenant Dan and Forrest is one of my favorites in the movie. Forrest is, he's being Forrest Gump. He's trying to, cheer up Lieutenant Dan. Lieutenant Dan lost his legs and everything. And Forrest, he's trying to be a good, private and trying to cheer him up. But Forrest, it doesn't work. Lieutenant Dan, he's depressed. And Lieutenant Dan, he talks about, do you know what it's like to not be able to use your legs or not have legs? And Forrest is just like, yeah, I know, because Forrest had those braces in the early parts of the movie. Run, Forrest, run. And it's an element that makes these things that are real, that happen to people, add a little bit of that comedy to it, a little bit of that black comedy to it, and it makes it a little bit easier to watch. With Jenny, too much of her story is just like, nah, this is depressing. Like, from jump. She, as a little kid, she is in the house with a monster. She's in this home with a monster and who is abusing her in all types of ways. There's the scene where little Jenny and little Forrest, they kind of run into a cornfield. Jenny prays and is just like, God, please turn me into a bird so I can fly away from here. And she does, in a way, escape the home. She ends up moving in with her grandmother. The state takes her away from her father, which on that, Jenny had a sister, and we never hear another mention of her again. So I assume that that poor woman had an even rougher life because we don't know anything about her. But Jenny ends up moving in with her grandmother, and at so many stages, horrid things happen to Jenny. Like when she's in college, she's nearly assaulted in a car, saved by Forrest. When she ends up getting kicked out of college because she posed nude for Playboy, had her college sweater on, and is like, that's not a good look. So we're gonna kick her out, and then her life kind of spirals. She gets a job singing naked, playing a guitar in this little bar. Men are pigs. They're grabbing at her, and Jenny, unfortunately, she ends up suffering a little bit from that. Forrest, tries to rescue her, and Forrest, he wants to be there for her, and Forrest, I think he loved her, and I don't think she quite loved him in that same manner. She probably loved him as a friend and cherished him in that way, but not quite. And we kind of see that in the movie where Jenny, I don't want to say she strings Forrest along, but it feels like that a little bit. But then we see Jenny, she hooks up with this radical dude connected with the Black Panthers, who isn't black. He ends up hitting her. Forrest has to save her. Like at every point, we're seeing just so many terrible things happen to Jenny. She gets hooked on drugs. There's 2 points in this movie where Jenny contemplates either jumping off a bridge or jumping off a building. And then we see Jenny, she ends up dying of HIV or dying of AIDS after she ends up getting with Forrest. She finally slows down for a little bit, gets with Forrest. Her and Forrest get married. They have Forrest Gump Jr. And yeah, that's kind of how the movie goes. Like Forrest leads an idyllic life. And again, Forrest being the movie having a little bit of a charm to it and a little bit of a gloss to it, like with the way that it's lit, it does make the little cringy bits of, is Forrest artistic? It makes it go down a little bit smoother. And there's also some things in this movie that I forgot how good they were. Like I said, all the Vietnam stuff was really good. The moment where we get to the attack that ends up to the death of Bubba and Forrest getting wounded and Lieutenant Dan losing his legs, like they're walking through the jungle and it's raining, and then all the Vietnam era music is just playing. You hear Fortunate Son, of course. That music is playing, it stops, and it's just like, it's like somebody turned the water off. And then an attack happens, a dude gets killed, and it's on. And I really like that. The war stuff, I was surprised at how good it was for this movie. The other thing that I really enjoyed were the visual effects with Forrest's legs, the braces coming off. I didn't know that was computer generated. I thought it was just some type of practical effect, but no, can't tell. It was smoothly done. The one effect that was a little janky were the historical bits where Forrest is inserted into moments in history, like the whole moment with George Wallace at the University of Alabama, him meeting the presidents, the lip flaps, those digital effects, they haven't aged quite as well. But overall, Forrest Gump, I'd say it's a low edger. I don't think the movie should have won. Like, I think it may have won Best Picture for the Academy Awards, and I think Tom Hanks did win Best Actor or something like that. I don't think it's one of those movies, and I think we can now reflect on how cringy those movies are and how we shouldn't have gave them awards. But I do think this is still a pretty strong movie. I do think that Forrest is a good protagonist. I like the elements of the movie. I love the relationship between Forrest and Lieutenant Dan, Forrest and Bubba. Forrest and his mom even had good chemistry and a good relationship. Not so much Forrest and Jenny, but for me, I give it a low edger. I'd say it's about a 4 out of 5 on the lower end. It's not a movie that I regret watching, but it's definitely not going to be in a future rotation. It's going to be removed. Like, it's one of those 90s movies where it's like, I don't need to see this one again for a while. But let me know what you think of Forrest Gump. Have you seen the movie? If not, are you interested in checking it out? Also, make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it if you enjoyed it. Let me know what your favorite of the cringe special needs movies that you enjoy watching. Do you get something from radio, or do you think that we should get more of those movies? Should we, now that we've kind of matured in our attitudes and we have a little more knowledge on some of these, affliction sounds harsh, but some of these, variants, what can we do, or can we do a movie like this? Can we get a modern Forrest Gump? I don't think we should. We definitely shouldn't get a Forrest Gump 2, because the books that Forrest Gump are based on are really weird. Like in one of them, he's an astronaut and he meets a talking monkey, and he gets stuck on this deserted island and he's made like king or something. Those books get weird. But let me know which one of these cringy movies that you enjoyed, and should we get more of them. Catch y'all next time with another review.